I stood there, frozen, as my fiancé laughed at the tattoo on my shoulder. The one thing more sacred to me than our engagement ring. His mistress joined in, calling it trashy military garbage. But when a man in dress blues stepped forward and saluted me, their smiles died. And my revenge? It was only beginning. If you want to see how this ends, stay until the very last second. And if you believe karma is real, hit that like button right now. My name is Margot. I'm 28 years old, and I design buildings for a living. I spend my days sketching blueprints and turning empty spaces into something meaningful, something that lasts. But there's one design I carry with me everywhere I go. One that I didn't draw on paper. I drew it on my skin. And that tattoo? It cost me everything. Or maybe it saved me from losing myself. I'm still figuring that out. 3 years ago, my older brother Finn was killed in Afghanistan. He was a Marine. Not just any Marine, the kind of man who ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. Growing up, Finn was my protector. When kids at school made fun of my braces, he'd walk me home and tell me stories about brave explorers who didn't care what anyone thought. When our parents divorced and everything felt like it was falling apart, he'd stay up with me, promising that he'd always guide me home, no matter where life took us. Before his final deployment, we got matching tattoos. A compass. Simple, elegant, pointing north. He said it was a promise, that no matter how far apart we were, we'd always find our way back to each other. I got mine on my left shoulder blade. He got his on his chest, right over his heart. 2 weeks after he came home in a flag-draped coffin, I went back to that tattoo parlor. I couldn't stop crying as the artist added his dog tags to the design, the coordinates of where he fell, and a single date. The day my world stopped spinning. That tattoo is the most important thing I own. It's not jewelry I can take off. It's not a photo I can tuck away in a drawer. It's Finn. It's every laugh, every late-night conversation, every promise he ever made me. And for 2 years after his death, I couldn't imagine letting anyone close enough to see it, let alone understand it. Then I met Reed. It was at some corporate event I didn't want to attend, the kind where everyone's networking and pretending their small talk matters. Reed was different, or at least I thought he was. He was charming in that effortless way, the kind of man who could make you feel like you were the only person in the room. He worked in investment banking, wore expensive suits, and had this confidence that made me feel safe. We started dating, and for the first time since Finn died, I felt like maybe I could be happy again. Maybe I could breathe without that weight on my chest. 6 months later, Reed proposed. He did it at this beautiful restaurant overlooking the city, got down on one knee, said all the right words. I said yes, because I wanted to believe in new beginnings. I wanted to believe that life could be good again, that I deserved love after so much loss. He slipped that ring on my finger, and I thought I'd found my person, the man who'd walk beside me through the grief, who'd understand that some scars don't heal, they just become part of who you are. But here's the thing about Reed. He never asked about the tattoo. Not once. And I thought that meant he respected my pain, that he understood it was too heavy to talk about. I was wrong. He didn't ask because he didn't care. The problem started small. So small I convinced myself I was imagining things. We were planning our engagement party, and Reed kept making these little comments. Maybe wear something with sleeves? He'd suggest while I was showing him dress options. Or, let's go with a more conservative look for the photos. I'd laugh it off, thinking he just wanted everything to look polished and professional. After all, his colleagues were coming, his boss, people from his firm. I told myself he was just being practical. Then there was Sienna. She was one of Reed's colleagues, and suddenly she was everywhere. Helping us pick the venue, offering to coordinate with the caterer, showing up at our apartment with fabric samples and seating charts. Reed said she was just being helpful, that she'd planned events before and knew what she was doing. But I noticed things. The way she'd laugh at his jokes a little too long. The way her hand would linger on his arm when she talked to him. The way Reed's face would light up when she walked into a room. A brightness I hadn't seen directed at me in weeks. I started testing him. I'd mention Finn casually, tell a story from our childhood, bring up something about the military. Every single time, Reed would change the subject. He'd check his phone, suddenly remember a work call he needed to make, or steer the conversation toward wedding planning. At first, I thought maybe I was talking about Finn too much, that maybe grief was exhausting for him to be around. But then I realized he wasn't tired of my grief. He just didn't want to deal with it. He wanted the version of me that smiled and looked good on his arm, not the version that carried her dead brother's memory on her skin. The late nights started piling up. "Big client meeting," he'd text. "Don't wait up." I'd fall asleep alone and wake up to find him on the couch, his phone clutched in his hand even in sleep. When I'd ask about his day, his answers got shorter, vaguer. "Fine. Busy. You wouldn't understand, it's finance stuff." Like I was too simple to comprehend his world. I have a degree in architecture, I understand complex systems, but pointing that out felt like starting a fight I didn't have energy for. 3 weeks before the wedding, everything came to a head. We were having dinner, and Reed just said it. Casual. Like he was suggesting I change my hair color. "Have you ever thought about getting that tattoo removed? It's a bit much, don't you think? We could find a good dermatologist." I put my fork down. My hands were shaking. "What did you just say?" He backtracked immediately, but not enough. "I just mean, for the wedding photos, it's kind of distracting, dark. Don't you want to look your best?" That's when I lost it. "This is my brother, Reed. This is Finn." His face hardened. "He's dead, Margot. He's been dead for 3 years. You need to move on." The air left the room. I couldn't breathe. Nobody had ever said those words to me. Not my parents, not my friends, not even strangers who didn't know what to say at the funeral. He's dead. Move on. Like Finn was a phase, like grief had an expiration date. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and left. I drove around for 2 hours, crying so hard I had to pull over twice. When I came back, Reed apologized. He blamed work stress, said he didn't mean it, promised he'd never say anything like that again. And I forgave him because I wanted to believe love was enough to fix this. But something had cracked. And once you see the fracture, you can't unsee it. I started paying attention. Really paying attention. The texts he'd hide by tilting his phone away. The calls he'd take in the other room. The way Sienna's name kept appearing on his screen. I told myself I was paranoid. But deep down, I knew. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. 1 week before the wedding, I left work early. There was a problem with a permit, and the site visit got canceled. I texted Reed to let him know I'd be home, but he didn't respond. Nothing unusual. He was always in meetings. I stopped and grabbed his favorite takeout, thinking maybe we could have a quiet night together. Maybe reconnect before the chaos of the wedding week. When I walked into our apartment, it was empty. His briefcase was on the counter. His jacket hung on the chair. And his phone. His phone was just sitting there, unlocked, screen glowing. I don't know what made me look. Maybe intuition. Maybe I'd been looking for a reason to confirm what I already knew. I picked it up, and my entire world shattered. Messages from Sienna, dozens of them. "Can't wait until she's out of the picture. After the wedding, we won't have to hide anymore. You're doing the right thing. She's holding you back." And photos. God, the photos. The two of them together, intimate, laughing, tangled up in hotel sheets. The timestamps went back 6 months. 6 months. Almost our entire engagement. My hands were shaking so violently, I almost dropped the phone. I felt like I was going to throw up. My chest was tight, my vision blurring. Everything I'd ignored, every red flag I'd talked myself out of, came crashing down at once. I heard the door open behind me. Reed walked in, saw me holding his phone, and his face went white. "Margot." "How long?" My voice didn't sound like mine. He didn't even try to deny it. It just happened. I didn't plan. How long? I was screaming now. Something I never do. 6 months. But it doesn't mean anything. The wedding is still. I threw the phone at him. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. Get out! Margot, let me explain. Get out! He left. I collapsed on the floor and cried until I had nothing left. But somewhere in that grief, something else started growing. Anger. Cold, sharp, clarifying anger. I decided to go to the engagement party anyway. I wanted everyone to know. I wanted his family, his colleagues, his perfect polished world to see exactly who he was. I wore a black backless dress that showed every inch of my tattoo. When I walked in, I saw his face change. Panic. He pulled me aside immediately, his grip tight on my arm. I asked you to cover that up. I yanked my arm away. Is it because Sienna doesn't like it? The room went quiet. You could hear the music still playing, but every conversation stopped. Reed's face turned red. Don't do this here. Do what? Tell the truth. I raised my voice so everyone could hear. Should I tell them how you've been sleeping with your colleague for 6 months? Or should I let Sienna do it? Sienna, standing near the bar, looked like she wanted to disappear. But Reed decided to go on the attack. Maybe he thought offense was his only defense. You want the truth? Fine. That tattoo makes you look cheap, like some military groupie who can't let go of the past. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sienna laughed, actually laughed, and said, Honestly, it's trashy. All that military garbage. Something in me snapped. Maybe if you spent less time mourning, Reed continued, and more time taking care of yourself, we wouldn't be in this position. My hand moved before I could think. The slap echoed through the room, sharp and satisfying. Tears were streaming down my face, but I didn't care anymore. We're done. You and your mistress deserve each other. I turned to leave, humiliated, heartbroken, destroyed. And then I heard a voice behind me. Excuse me, miss. I turned. A man in navy dress blues stood there, ribbons and medals covering his chest. He was probably mid-40s, with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. He walked toward me, and the crowd parted like water. He stopped right in front of me, his gaze locked on my shoulder, on Finn's tattoo. Then he saluted. Sharp, crisp, respectful. The room held its breath. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. This stranger in uniform was saluting me, and I had no idea why. My vision was blurred from tears, my face still burning from the confrontation, and suddenly this man, this decorated military officer, was standing at attention in front of me like I was someone who mattered. He lowered his hand and spoke, his voice steady and clear enough for everyone to hear. Captain Finn Brennan was one of the finest Marines I ever served alongside. He saved my life and 4 others in Helmand Province. That tattoo, he gestured to my shoulder. It's an honor, ma'am, not trash. An honor. The room was completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I felt my knees go weak, and I'm pretty sure the only thing keeping me upright was sheer shock. This man knew Finn. This stranger knew my brother. I'm Commander Holden West, Navy SEALs, he continued, still looking at me with this incredible respect that made me want to cry all over again. I didn't know Captain Brennan had a sister here. I came to this venue for a military fundraiser event upstairs, heard the commotion, and... He paused, his jaw tightening. And I heard what was said about that tattoo, about your brother. He turned to face the crowd, and I watched as every person in that room suddenly couldn't meet his eyes. Your brother didn't just serve. He didn't just do his job. On March 14th, 3 years ago, his unit was ambushed. Outnumbered, outgunned, pinned down. Finn drew enemy fire away from his men. He ran into the open, exposing himself, so the rest of us could get to cover and call for air support. He took 3 rounds doing it. He knew what he was doing. He knew he probably wouldn't make it, and he did it anyway. I couldn't stop the sob that escaped. I'd read the official report, but hearing it from someone who was there, someone Finn saved, it was different. It was real in a way I'd never felt before. Commander West wasn't finished. Captain Brennan was awarded the Navy Cross posthumously. That's the second highest military decoration for valor. There are men alive today, men with families, with children, because of what he did. He's not military garbage. He's a legend. His eyes found Reed in the crowd, and his voice turned to ice. And anyone who disrespects that sacrifice disrespects every person who's ever worn this uniform. You should be ashamed of yourself. Reed's face had gone from red to completely white. Sienna looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. People started pulling out their phones. I could see screens lighting up, cameras pointing at Reed and Sienna. This was going to be everywhere. Reed tried to salvage it, his voice shaking. I didn't know. I didn't mean it like that. I cut him off. You never asked. In 2 years, Reed, you never once asked what my tattoo meant. You never asked about Finn, about what he did, about why he mattered. You just decided it was something to be ashamed of. Margot, please. And while you mocked my dead brother, I said, my voice stronger now, while you told me to move on and cover up and pretend like he never existed, you were sleeping with her. The gasps were louder this time. Reed's boss, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, stepped forward. I recognized him from company events. His face was hard as stone. Reed, we'll discuss this Monday morning. First thing, the firm has a strict ethics policy, and this, he gestured around the room, this is unacceptable. Reed's friends, the ones who'd been laughing and drinking minutes before, turned away from him. Someone muttered, Dude, that's messed up. Another said, I can't believe you. Sienna tried to slip toward the exit, but people blocked her path, staring at her with disgust. I watched it all unfold like I was outside my body. The humiliation I'd felt 5 minutes ago was gone, replaced by something else. Vindication, justice, the kind of revenge I didn't even have to plan. Karma just handed it to me on a silver platter. The videos went viral before I even left the venue. By the time I got home that night, my phone was exploding with notifications. The footage was everywhere. Reed mocking my tattoo, Sienna laughing, Commander West's salute, my revelation about the affair. Millions of views, thousands of comments, people calling Reed and Sienna every name in the book, strangers sending me messages of support, veterans thanking me for honoring Finn's memory, people sharing their own stories of loss and betrayal. By Monday morning, Reed had lost his job. His boss didn't wait for a meeting. He called Reed Sunday night and told him not to bother coming in. The firm released a statement about upholding values and integrity, distancing themselves from the PR nightmare. Sienna was fired the same day. Apparently, the company had a strict policy about workplace relationships, especially ones that involved affairs. They both violated it, and with the video circulating, the company had no choice. The wedding was canceled. All the deposits were in Reed's name, so he ate the costs. $15,000 gone. I kept the engagement ring out of spite, sold it a week later, and donated every penny to a veterans charity in Finn's name. It felt good, better than good. It felt right. Commander West and I exchanged information that night. He told me about other Marines who'd served with Finn, about stories I'd never heard. A week later, he invited me to a military memorial event. I went, terrified and hopeful at the same time. And for the first time since Finn died, I was surrounded by people who understood. People who didn't think my grief had an expiration date. People who saw my tattoo and nodded with respect instead of pity. 6 months passed. I threw myself into my work and started designing something I'd been thinking about for years. A memorial park dedicated to Finn. A place where Gold Star families could come and feel peace. Commander West introduced me to other families who'd lost someone, and slowly, I started to heal. Not forget. Never forget. But heal. The karma for Reed and Sienna was almost poetic. Their relationship imploded within 3 weeks. Turned out, Sienna had been texting another guy the entire time she was with Reed. He found out, confronted her, and she left him. Just walked out. He called me crying. Can you believe that? I didn't answer. He deserved to feel exactly what he'd put me through. Last I heard, Reed was working retail, living in a tiny apartment, blacklisted in the finance world. Sienna moved back to her hometown in disgrace after her parents saw the videos. They both became cautionary tales on social media. What happens when you disrespect a veteran and cheat on your partner? The internet doesn't forget. I ran into Reed 3 months ago at a coffee shop. He looked exhausted, defeated, smaller somehow. He approached me carefully, like I might explode. Margot, I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No anger, no love, no hatred. Just nothing. You weren't wrong about one thing, I said calmly. I did need to move on. Just not from Finn. From you. I walked away and didn't look back. Last week, I visited Finn's grave for the first time since everything happened. I told him about Commander West, about the memorial park that's breaking ground next month, about how his sacrifice is still saving me, even now. You're still guiding me home, I whispered, touching the headstone, just like you promised. The wind rustled through the trees, and I swear I felt him there, proud of me for finally standing up for myself, for honoring him the way he deserved, for not letting anyone make me small. I looked down at my tattoo in the sunlight, at Finn's coordinates and dog tags etched into my skin, and I smiled. A real smile. Because I finally understood. This tattoo wasn't a scar. It was a badge of honor, and I'd wear it for the rest of my life. They tried to make me feel ashamed of the one thing I should be most proud of. But here's what I learned. The people who truly matter will never ask you to hide your scars, your stories, or your love. They'll honor them. Reed saw my tattoo as a flaw. Commander West saw it as a badge of honor. And that's the difference between someone who deserves you and someone who doesn't. Finn used to tell me, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward despite it. I was terrified to walk away from Reed, from the life I'd planned. But walking away was the bravest thing I ever did. And if you're holding on to someone who makes you feel small, who mocks what you love, who disrespects your pain, let them go. You deserve someone who salutes your strength, not someone who tries to diminish it. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe. Because there's always more where this came from. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that they're enough, exactly as they are. And remember, karma doesn't forget. It just takes its time.